try better stand. Yes, you're on.
So, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Joan Hollister, and this is the Council Connections program with some representatives from the Dulcimer group, and I'm going to ask each of them to introduce themselves.
Cynthia Lee, and I have a dulcimer.
Flo Jordan, and I have a bass.
Suzanne Arkowski, I have a standard.
So, in the official announcement of this program, Suzanne's name was the only one that appeared, but she does get top billing because she's responsible for dulcimers being here at Woodland Pond, and a lot of us have benefited from that. Personally, I have found it one of the most enjoyable, interesting activities. So, Suzanne, how in the world did you start playing dulcimers?
Almost by accident. Back in 2012, with the encouragement of our families, my sister and I took a sisters-only vacation, and we looked at many different options and ended up going to Ripley, West Virginia, to the Cedar Lakes Convention Center. It was a Rhodes Scholar trip, and there were many activities being taught there. There was watercolor, there was nature painting, etc. But one of the classes was to make a dulcimer, and we thought it sounded like fun. But at that time, I only had a vague idea what a dulcimer was. So we got there, one was on display, it was beautiful, had hummingbird hole, sound holes. And over the course of the week, we cobbled together from a kit with a lot of assistance from the instructor. We basically made a dulcimer. So we each came home with a dulcimer. Okay, now you come home, what are you gonna do with it? I really didn't want to hang it on the wall, and I decided to try to play it. Now, I do not have much of a musical background, but lo and behold, I learned that I could play a dulcimer. I came home with my, not this one, my original dulcimer, and a beginning dulcimer lesson book. I looked online for a teacher, couldn't find one. Looked online for, anyway, the search went on. And I struggled for a while until I found Melody Music Studios. A woman in Reno, Nevada contracts with music teachers around the country with all kinds of instruments. And I emailed her to see if she had a dulcimer teacher listed for our area. No, she didn't, but a couple weeks later, she called me or emailed me back and said there was somebody there who thought she could get me started. So I started. I've become good friends with that woman now. And she will say now she did not teach me dulcimer. She taught me music. She literally had me marching and clapping around her house because I didn't have very good rhythm. Lesson number one, when I was playing at home, I always ended up with a sore, my hand would ache. So lesson number one was, don't kill your pick, relax your grip. I mean, this is where I started on the dulcimer, but I could play it. It's a simple instrument to play.
So this woman who was teaching you, did she learn the dulcimer at the same time?
No, she is a music teacher. She teaches guitar, banjo, keyboard, and she sings. So she is a trained musician. She has a dulcimer. And so she could pretty much, with the book I had, we worked our way through and she got me started on that.
So it sounds like she did learn something about playing a dulcimer.
Oh yeah, well, she knows about playing instruments, so that was not that much of a challenge for her. But then, yeah, go ahead. Through my continuing searching on the web, I got the name of a Carolyn Langley up in Post-and-Kill. You have to look it up on the map. It's not very big. Post-and-Kill, New York. And she was the president of a Dulcimer Association in Albany, the DAA, Dulcimer Association of Albany. And she put me on to Susan Trump, who lives in Schenectady. And I really didn't want to drive that far for lessons, but she has lessons you can order and they come through the mail. And with them comes a CD, an instructional CD. So I ordered lessons from Susan Trump and I brought one of them into this teacher that I was going to and let her look at it for a weekend. Well, when I went to pick it up, she said, "You don't need me anymore. You have a good teacher." So I continued with Susan Trump's lessons for the time being.
So that's how you started.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it here at Woodland Park?
Well, we can thank Gretsch for that. When we come in, we get our bios put into the directory. And by then I had met other Dulcimer players and we had a group playing out in the general Mid-Hudson Valley called Hearts of the Valley. We named ourselves Hearts of the Valley because at one point in time, all of us had heart-shaped sound holes. Nobody had any other shape at that time. So we became Hearts of the Valley Dulcimer players. And in my bio, when I moved in, it said that I played the Dulcimer and I belonged to a group. Well, Gretsch read that and she said, "Would your group like to do a concert here?" So I went to the group and they said, "Well, yeah." And so we put together our first ever performance. And we set up in the alcove over there in the pack. And we didn't want to be marching in front of people with our Dulcimer. So we were all set up when people started coming in. And I'll tell you, we thought we might get 40 people. We packed the place. I think it was probably more curiosity than anything. They ended up setting up extra chairs. And I remember Marla was sitting on the floor. But we did it. And afterwards, I think the interest just came. We invited people after the concert to come up and sit down and try Dulcimer. And then we got the Dulcimer group going here.
So have any of the people in the current Dulcimer group played the Dulcimer before?
I don't believe so.
So all of us learned it just after we came to Woodland Park. Well, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Do you have classes now for people who are interested in learning?
The question was whether or not we have classes.
I can teach beginning Dulcimer. And I have Dulcimers that I loan out. So anybody who is interested, I will sit down with you and get you started free of charge. That does not stay that way if you choose to stick with it. If you choose to stick with it, you have my borrowed Dulcimer. You will eventually have to return it and buy your own. But anybody who wants to try it, just contact me. I have 3 Dulcimers I loan out.
And that's really very generous of you, but that's how I got started with Dulcimers.
Me too.
Borrow.
Yeah.
Me too.
Well, if somebody is interested and they find out that they have to buy an instrument that's going to cost $500+, they're going to have second thoughts about trying it because you don't want to spend that kind of money and find out you don't like it.
Can you spend a smaller amount initially?
If you can find a good used instrument, you can spend you can spend less. Yeah, we found that instruments that cost $400 or less don't usually sound very good.
What about the cardboard Dulcimers?
Thank you. Thank you. I forgot about the cardboard Dulcimers. They actually sound pretty good and they sell for under $100.
Do those deteriorate faster? Is that part of the problem?
I think you have to be a little more gentle with them because you can poke a hole in one. It is cardboard. With the cardboard Dulcimer, the sound box is cardboard. The fretboard is wood. It has the same kind of frets you find on this one, has the same kind of tuning pegs you find on this one. So that part is durable. It's the sound box that won't be quite as durable, but they actually do sound quite good.
Do any of the group here use soundboard and use cardboard Dulcimers?
Initially, 2 people did. They didn't want to spend a lot of money and they bought one. One had lost interest and sold her cardboard Dulcimer. The other one is now in the health center and has given up the dulcimer. And I have her cardboard dulcimer. When she moved, I got it. They just gave it to me.
Gretchen just indicated to me that my mic was not on. So it's very possible people at home have been hearing me from a distance through Suzanne's mic, but I apologize if you were not able to hear me.
I'm used to it.
Okay.
Thank you. Now,
So do you want to interview our other members here about their instruments?
yeah, we brought in Cynthia and Flo because unlike my Hearts of the Valley group, they bought dulcimers that are 1 octave removed from the standard. So that gives us quite a range of possibility of what we can play in the dulcimer group. Cynthia, would you like to talk about your dulcimet? You need a mic.
She's got. Is it on?
Hi, this is a dulcimet and it's easy to travel with, but I prefer playing my standard because this is rather small. The entire length is only 24 inches. The widest part is 5 inches. The fretboard is from this part to the end, and that's 17 inches. It does have 6 strings, whereas your standard comes with 4, but usually it's 3. The double strings on each of these, the melody, the middle, and the bass, is probably to make it louder. And I have little cheat sheets here, 2, 5, and a 6 plus, because they're so much more closer. There's more close together than the standard, and so I can't remember sometimes. But there's the 1, the 1.5, the 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6.5, 7, 8, 9, 10, and so on, where you can put your fingers to make a chord or to make a sound. And this is where you tune it. And so the first is the melody. And then the second, the middle string. And then the bass. And I paid $4.50 for this. I haven't got my own standard yet. I'm borrowing Susan Seligman's dulcimer, standard dulcimer, and in return, I'm supposed to teach her how to play it, but she's the cellist for the Philharmonic, so I don't know what I'm going to teach her. But anyway, so it adds a third dimension, an upper tone when we play together.
Do you want her to play?
Why don't we,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm on, correct? Oh. So this is the bass dulcimer. This is bass dulcimer. It's 1 octave lower than the standard. I might as well do my stick. It's 28 inches long as opposed to Cynthia's, what did you say, 24. The back and the sides are Paducah wood. The soundboard is cherry, and the fretboard is a walnut. I won't go into the strings. But the sound is DAD, as the standard is also tuned to DAD, and you also have DAD, right? Okay. So what is important about that is that we can play with the group. We don't have weird tuning of the bass dulcimer. The bass dulcimer actually is not that old on the scene with dulcimers, maybe 2 decades old. but it's becoming much more popular right now. The bass dulcimer was initially brought on board because it is like the beat keeper, that kind of thing. But now it's a little bit more sophisticated, to the point where you can, and you've seen us play duets, the bass and the standard. And I can play backup on some of the songs. And they just published the first book of solos for the bass dulcimer, because the bass dulcimer is not a solo instrument. It's better when you have it, can you imagine hearing that the whole time? It's better when, you really are using it with somebody else.
So what motivated you to invest in a bass dulcimer?
Actually, I think I was watching one of the festivals online, and I heard a group, Elaine and Larry Conger. They're pretty well known in the dulcimer world. They do a lot of arranging and writing music just for dulcimers. And Elaine Conger was playing her bass, and Larry was playing the standard. And I thought, wow, that sounds really nice, And I thought, I talked to Suzanne. I said, it might add another dimension to our group, just to get the bass on board. So, and if you notice, I am using it a little bit more and more as we go along. Was there anything else?
When you practice, do you enjoy playing the bass more, or?
No, I would say equal, But with the bass, what I do is I get the music on my phone, and then I play the melody on the phone, and then I can play the bass backup, So I'm not all by myself, basically. You got something to play with.
Want to show them the tuner?
The tuners are a little bit different. This is not a flat head. This is a scroll head. And what Cynthia has is a flat head. That's why the tuners are in different positions. Now, this did come with 4 strings. I took off 1 string, so I only have 3.
If there are 4 strings,
It's usually the melody string that's doubled.
so why would there be 2 strings in the melody string position? Suzanne?
She looked like she knew, so that's why.
There's 2 basic ways to play a dulcimer. Initially, a dulcimer was played, some of the early dulcimers didn't even have, they had frets only under the melody string. They didn't have frets under the middle and the bass string. And they were played what would be called the noter style. So you would fret only on the melody string. And to make the melody string ring louder, they had a double melody string. So we're going to be doing a demonstration of the first song everybody learns if they're going to do the dulcimer is Boil Them Cabbage. And it's called the Dulcimer National Anthem. And we're going to be doing it on all 3. But if you're going to be doing noter style, it would be. Now, all my strings are going to ring pretty much the same volume right now because I don't have the double. But if it was double, you'd hear that melody better. And that's why you would start with a double melody string. But now we're doing the chord melody. Most of us play full chords, and you don't want the melody string to ring out. Plus, there's a technique called hammer on. 2 techniques. One is a hammer on, one is a pull off, which means you would hammer on, you would. You just literally hammer on with your finger. With a pull off, it's a. And if you have a double melody string, it's very difficult to do either of those because you don't hit the strings on a hammer on, you're not going to hit them the same. And if you pull off, you're going to pull one off before the other. So if you're doing melody style like we are all doing now, it's really better to remove that extra string.
So 100 years ago in the Appalachian Mountains, when they were playing dulcimers, did they use hammer-ons and pull-offs, or is that a relatively new technique?
I honestly can't answer that question. I would presume if they're doing the noter style, they're not going to do any of that stuff. It's very difficult to do any of it. I mean, if you're just doing the melody string. But-
When Jean Ritchie popularized, or at least expanded the use of the dulcimer, at least in the East, did she use the noter style, do you know?
I think she basically used the noter style. For anybody who's not heard of Jean Ritchie, you're not a dulcimer player. If you're a dulcimer player, you know who Jean Ritchie is. She was raised in the Cumberland area of Kentucky. She was the last, what?
A well-known folk singer.
Yeah, she was the last of 14 kids. And this was subsistence farming living. They all grew their food. And of course, no running water in the house, no electricity. So it was not what we would consider luxurious living. But many of her siblings also went out on scholarships or whatever. They ended up going to college. She also did, and she ended up in New York City with her dulcimer. And she was playing in tea houses and like that. So the dulcimer came out of the Appalachian Mountains. And it has spread across the country and into Europe at this point in time.
And that was in the 60s, so it's not like, the year 2 or something like
Yeah.
that. It's not
Yeah.
that old.
It's fairly recent, but it is spreading. And
So how did it even get to the Appalachian Mountains if they didn't have it in Europe?
it was developed in the Appalachian Mountains. I mean, look at the mountains. They're full of trees. They have a lot of hardwood there. And sometimes I think initially a lot of them were just boxes. They'd have a box and put a fretboard on it. And then that got fancier and put curves with them. There's right now two standard shapes. This one is the hourglass. There's some that are tiered. We don't have one. One of our, who's it? Elaine has a teardrop. The teardrop, instead of doing this, sorry. Comes out like that, shaped like a teardrop. They sound about the same. It's more of a personal preference. But anyhow, Cynthia, would you like to play Boil Them Cabbage on your dulcimer?
Yes.
So,
I'll hold that. Oh, let me just turn this around, maybe that'd be easier.
That one?
Okay, there you go.
I
That's
don't-
that 1.5. That's
Yeah,
it.
that 1.5 fret I don't have on my standard, and got bad habits because I just go to the next one. Yeah.
The 1.5 fret is relatively new, so, well, yours has a half of one. Some of them don't have it at all.
Yeah.
Okay, am I next?
bunch of-
No, this is 1.5.
and I've already done it, but I'll do it again.
How come none of you played it with chords?
Well, the bass does not, doesn't, they don't play really chords with the bass. Because it sounds very like, it's really muddy and they.
Yeah. Well, we'd
encourage
like
you
to,
not do
yeah,
that.
we'd like to now to try playing the three of them together.
Okay.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, you mentioned chords. So now you probably play it the same way, but we'll play it with chords now so you can hear the difference.
At least you should play it with chords.
I should play it with chords, yeah. Okay.
Well, I think Cynthia can too.
I think, okay. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Sorry, start over. I started on the wrong chord. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. again.
Oh,
Fast?
No, I'm going to do the
Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4. Can you start over? This is nerves. Okay.
Oh, harmony?
Yeah, I'm doing the
she's
harmony.
on the harmony.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Very nice.
So, so, yeah.
So why would anyone want to learn to play a dulcimer?
Because it's a lovely instrument to play. And like I said, I am not from training or by natural ability a musician. I can play the dulcimer. It's got 3 strings. Guitar has 6. We have 3. It has frets. When you see the music that's written for dulcimer, it will have the standard notation. That's your quarter notes, your half notes on the 5-line staff that you're used to seeing for any kind of music. However, underneath that, you're going to have 3 more lines. 1 line represents the bass string. 1 line represents the middle string, and the 3rd line represents the melody string. On those lines, you're going to have numbers. If you see a number 1 on the melody string line, you're going to fret the 1st fret.
Means you push on it.
Push it.
Okay.
If you see a 4 on the middle line, you're going to push on the fret on the middle string. If you see a 3 on the line that represents the bass string, you're going to fret there. And so you're playing by number. If you can count 1, 2, 3, 4, you can play a dulcimer.
Well, that actually, if it's got both the staff and the tab for dulcimers, isn't that really confusing? You have to be able to look at both and read both.
Yes and no. Some of the new players do get confused. Some of the people who play other instruments forget to look at the numbers. They keep looking. For example, if you're playing a piano, every key is 1 note and it's always the same note. That's not the case in the dulcimer. We're tuned D-A-D. So if I pluck that string, it's a D. However, if I fret the 3rd fret on the melody string, middle string, it's the same D. If I do the 7th fret on the bass string, it's the same D. And that can be confusing for people who are used to playing fixed note instruments, such as the piano.
Actually, Cynthia, were you the one who said you'd seen the dulcimer on a list of one of the easiest to play instruments?
Yes, yes, but it gets tricky, the harder the music you play and the
Yeah.
more difficult, the faster and the.
Well, how long does it take to learn?
You can play boiled and cabbage the first time you sit down.
Now, would that be for somebody who's never played any instrument at all and who can't read any music and know anything about it?
Yeah. I find I reach a plateau, like it's overcome, the first.
Do you have the mic?
The first 2 months, oh gosh, I didn't think I could learn this. But then, you learn something and you learn something new, and then you practice, and you reach a plateau. And so I'm always learning. I'm still learning.
And the other nice thing about this is the music is that you can play spans the gamut. You can play classical, jazz, country western. I mean, you name it, you can play it on the dulcimer. So it's not just, one type of music that you can, that you have to
Where do
play.
you get the music if you've got to have this special tab for dulcimer?
When I started playing, that was a really big question I had, because I had my beginner book and I didn't know where to go. There's a lot online for free. There are there are teachers all around the country who put out their own books, their own lessons. There are festivals. There are 4 festivals within about a 2-hour drive of New Paltz. My favorite, and I think probably you too, is the one in Albany or Latham, the DAA festival. There's one in Vermont. Both of those are only mountain dulcimer. There's one in Connecticut that is a mountain dulcimer and hammered dulcimer. And anybody who's watched our concerts lately with Gretchen on her hammered dulcimer, that's what the hammered dulcimer is. Then there's one in Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania, which I don't go to anymore because it's a 1-day festival and it requires 2 nights lodging. And I find that the cost of the lodging is more than I pay for a 1-day festival. But it also is mountain and hammered dulcimer. But you can pick up tab at any of the festivals. You can pick up all kinds of equipment at the festivals. And there's other festivals, some week-long ones in other parts of the country. One of my other players in the Hearts of the Valley has gone to a couple of those. I've not done that yet. I don't know if I will.
So there is some monetary cost as well as time investment.
If you, is there anything that there isn't? Yeah. I'm always looking for new players. And like I said, I can teach beginning dulcimer. However, I would caution people who have just moved in, please get yourself settled in first. Moving into Woodland Pond is a big adjustment. And in my experience, people who move in and say, oh yeah, I want to take the dulcimer, and we get you started within 2 weeks or 3 weeks of you moving in, you don't have the time to practice and you get discouraged and you quit. That's been my experience. So love to have you, but get yourself settled in. Wait at least 2 to 3 months before you come. Did I lose? Before you approach me. That it's just my experience that it works better that way.
But if somebody does decide to join the dulcimer group, are they required to come twice a week? And if they don't come, it's a big problem?
I don't like to say anything is required. You get out of it what you put into it, but that's true of anything. If you take up any instrument, you're not going to learn it by osmosis. You're going to learn it by practice. The same holds true for the dulcimer. You do need to practice. And if you really are dedicated and want to play with the group, it's advisable that you come to both. We've had people who didn't. But yeah, it's not
But if somebody's away on vacation,
Oh.
and
I go away on vacation. You can run without me.
so you're not letting the group down if you don't
Oh,
show up now and
absolutely
then?
no, no,
Yeah.
absolutely.
This afternoon, right, Joe?
But the reason I bring that up is like with handbells, if somebody doesn't show up, it's a problem because those bells then need to be covered by somebody else.
Right.
But that's not the case for dulcimer.
No, with handbells, everybody has their own bells and their own notes, and they're the only ones ringing that note. So if they're not there, that note doesn't ring. But with dulcimers, we all play the whole song.
Yeah.
So yeah, it doesn't matter.
But if somebody were to start and then get discouraged and stop and then want to start 2 years later, they could.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anybody out there who's gotten discouraged, you can start again.
Right. I do want to add one thing before we close, and we're running out of time. Yes, I'm the one who moved into Woodland Pond with a dulcimer and the dream to have a dulcimer group. And yes, it's through me the dulcimer group got started. However, without the other players, there would be no dulcimer group. They deserve all the credit right now that I deserve. It is us. It's not me. It's us. They are dedicated. They support each other. They come in with the music they found online to share. I know Flo and Cynthia and Joan sometimes will get started and just, we aren't together. And so one of them will start to count 1, 2, 3 to bring us all back in together again. I'm not the timing expert. I already said that. The timing has been a challenge for me from day one. So I very much appreciate anyone speaking up to bring us back together. But those are the contributions everybody brings to this group. Oh, we all practice at home. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, and you're not going to learn it if you don't. You have to practice at home. And you'll find that you can play something at home. You sit down with the group. Oh, wow, it's a lot harder. It's a lot harder. But because this group has been a group, well, the core players, I think, Phil and Cynthia, we've come together as a group, and you learn to play together. Joan came in about 1.5 years ago. We just picked up Trina Green about 4 months ago. But the group, again, when we have somebody new, everybody is willing to go back to that beginning book and play songs from that beginning book that the new person can play.
We actually like it because it makes us feel like we can do something well.
Yeah. So I can't praise the group enough. They all contribute something and are so supportive of each other. So it really is. It's us. It's an us right now.
Now, if somebody is just sort of thinking about it, would you recommend that they sometimes come and listen to our rehearsals and
Yeah.
see that we are a friendly group?
Mhm. Yeah. And we rehearse twice a week, Monday and Thursday, here in the back at 3:30. There's always extra chairs. Come on in and sit in and listen if you're interested. And after the session is over, we'll put a dulcimer in your lap and let you play on it. So, Gretch has said maybe someday we can do a rehearsal outside of the pub and the patio out there. We may do that someday. Yeah.
If somebody is interested in being part of a music group, but they hate performing, can they join and just not be expected to?
I will repeat, I don't like to require anything of anybody. We would encourage you to try it because when you sit there and you hear it's wonderful. It's wonderful to hear that clap. We went a whole year without it. If anybody was at our first concert back in May, when we played our first piece and there was applause, I was astounded because we were
speechless.
I was, because I had forgotten what it was like to have applause. It's a good feeling. But no, if somebody is really shy and doesn't want to perform, no, they don't have to do that.
Or you can just hold your hand and pretend you're strumming.
Yeah, you can pretend. You can do that too. Yeah. One of the workshop leaders at and the festivals I've gone to, she said, if you're playing with a group and you get lost, just sit there and wait till the last note and then go like this. Nobody will ever know you weren't playing. But yeah, no, I don't require anything. It's just, it's supposed to be pleasurable and fun. So.
Would you like to add anything, Flo? Or
I think we all were like that, very hesitant about playing in front of a group, but we all did it anyway.
Yeah.
Just
And Suzanne encourages us to lead the time signature. Like if it's 3-4, we'll count, give you a measure for free, 1, 2, 3, and then we'll come in. So each day, each time we practice, somebody different counts us in.
And I did that purposely because if I'm not here and I'm the only one who has ever counted us in, somebody else has to do it.
then we rely on Flo or Libby.
No, everybody does. Everybody has
Well,
their turn counting in.
We are over time.
Yes, we are.
So we should wrap this up. But thank you very much, all three of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, Gretchen, for picking up on the fact that my light was not on. It was on the whole.
Thank you for